I hear you.
Anniversaries, Brad Langford on the 28th of December, 27 years. Birthdays without chocolates this year. That's me, one of the most important one. I'm having my birthday on the 4th. Sherry Copo is on December the 25th. And Denise Spadaro is on the 27th. So what Rotarians need to know, this week we had Tilbury had a medical supply donation and dropped off at our office, which filled our office, but we managed to give it back to Tilbury. So they are collecting stuff and doing a container of medical supplies. I think they've been working on them for 3 years now and have done it many times to help me with that. So they are storing stuff in Barry White's barn. Okay. And Tanya is going to speak.
So we have
Tanya.
Oh, sorry. Right here?
Sorry.
He's over there.
Yeah.
Over here?
Yeah, that's good.
I have no idea what I'm doing. Am I good? I'm gonna stay right here. This is hard. Okay, so we have not a surplus of funds, but we have some donation funds that we need to spend. We have our bingo funds from Riverview Bingo, and we have some Nevada, the Break Open tickets funds to spend. So what I have suggested, the municipality has followed up with me and said, please spend some of your funds. So I am suggesting that we put in, you can email it to me and Jennifer, an organization you would like to donate some funds to, and we were thinking we could possibly do 10 $1,000 donations. I've seen other clubs do it, like last year they did that. And then I was saying to Jennifer, we could submit them all. And if we get more than 10, we could do something like a dotocracy where you put all the 10 on the chart for next week. And I give you dots and you prioritize which ones, and then we come up with a 10. It's a way that you as Rotarians get to support your favorite nonprofits across Chatham, Kent. And it's a quick and easy way to disperse some funds and do some good just right before Christmas. And it's not submitted funds, like it's not people asking us already for funds. So it's a Christmas windfall for some of our organizations.
And does it have to be a registered charity or does it be a nonprofit?
Usually nonprofits are registered, aren't they? Or they're affiliated with someone that you can funnel the funds through?
When we went through all this with
Oh, okay.
Nonprofits, when they give money away, really giving it to nonprofits, registered charity.
Okay, so in order to comply with our status, right, and to stay as a registered charity, we have to donate the funds to registered charities. So, any other questions? So just submit, a couple of charities you'd love to see the community get in the community that you'd love to see get a donation to Jennifer and I, and we'll next week come with a chart, and I'll get some dots. And we'll do this dotocracy thing. Okay.
I just sent you a request.
Ooh, I don't like it. Thank you.
You don't, great. You don't get it. Any happy notes? Anybody want it? Allison. Pick a spot.
Like an X marks the spot.
There you go.
So a few copy notes. First is that Western is going to the Vanier Cup this weekend, and last time I went to the Vanier Cup, I was watching Colin McGregor's brother Sandy play, at the Sky Dome, and we were front row, we were yelling at Sandy, and the crowd, he saw us and waved. That was fun.
1995, I think.
Yep, we were in first year university at Western, so that's exciting. So I shouldn't have said the date, I'm old now.
You're going, right?
No, I was just remembering
Oh,
my only visit as a fan to the Vanier Cup and remembering that story. So go Stangs. Second is tonight and tomorrow. We're having 2 vaccine Q&A sessions on the Come Together CK Facebook page. Tonight, we're talking about boosters with Drs. Denise and Dr. Matt Milkovich. And then tomorrow night, we're having a pediatrician, Dr. Ian Johnston, talking about kids and the vaccine. Although there'll be lots of different questions about the vaccine, but those are what we're focusing on tonight and tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on the Facebook, on Facebook. And you can just tune in and listen, or you can tune in and submit your own questions. And it's just meant to spread some more information. And last but not least, on Friday at 8 p.m. at the Red Barn Brewing Company, Dan, my husband, and I are playing 1 hour of Christmas music at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Red Barn if you're looking to get extra festive.
What day is that?
This Friday, the 3rd, December 3rd at the Red Barn Brewing. If you haven't been to Red Barn yet, it's a wonderful local watering hole. And they have beer, but other things as you don't.
Water.
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 Soda.
Great. Anybody else?
Yes.
You were speaking.
Where do I stand? Right here?
Right there.
Right there. Well, thinking about vaccines, Carol and I are really happy about the fact that our 3 grandchildren in Guelph, ages 5, 7, and 9, all got vaccinated on Monday. That was the very first day that they were doing it in Guelph, so we think that's good news. Now we have 1 left, and that's eligible. She's 5 years old up in Red Lake, and that'll be coming up much sooner than later as well. Now, when I'm up here, that's the upper, the downer. You've heard the news over in Michigan about that school shooting. Well, that's in Oxford, and there's the Oxford Rotary Club, and that's one of our sister clubs. About 30 minutes north of Guelph, of Detroit, and it's directly across from Sombra. Whenever I was traveling across there, I can well remember going to that Oxford High School and visiting the Interact Club in that school.
To add to that, I don't know if you saw Mary, but Don Riddell's grandson goes there.
Oh, is that right?
He posted this morning on his Facebook page that he was okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll go check that out on Facebook. Thanks, Allison.
Anything else? What are you going to talk about?
I'm back.
No.
The Goodfellows. So on Monday, we did Goodfellows, the club. And so thank you to, just want to make sure I got all the names here right. So is Karen here? Yeah, Karen Dale. So Karen and Dale were out. Brad Langford, Paul Watson, Les Herman, and myself. And between the 5 of us, we worked this turf over here, over there. And we collected $1,753.97.
Those 2 pennies I collected.
Oh, is that right?
American pennies.
I had a man come to our door, and that was great, but I could see him leapfrogging with another person on our street.
Yeah.
And about an hour later, another person came. It was a younger kid almost. He looked like 17.
Oh,
Was he real, do you think?
well, I have to wonder about that.
Yeah.
But who knows?
He didn't have any bandits either.
Well, we had aprons. And we had a lot of identification.
I think he did have an apron.
And we had magazines and newspapers. Yeah.
But-
You must have been living in a very wealthy neighborhood that you could afford that too. Yeah. Okay, and anybody? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, Peter.
Well, first thing is our grandkids beat yours by 2 days in Waterloo. So they both got vaccinated on, well, the 2 older ones got vaccinated on Saturday. younger one's not quite old enough yet. But I forgot to mention something last week when I was talking about the Guatemala stuff, and which is the actual schedule when we're doing things. The Guatemala schools are supposed to open middle of February. November and December are holiday. And so what we're planning on, and we have a meeting tomorrow to discuss this with all the sort of representatives of the contributing clubs, is that we'll let the schools sort of run a month or two, and then we'll start the purchasing of the equipment around January, February timeframe. We're getting Serenina to port all their girl empowerment stuff starting now, so it'll be ready by March, and then we'll add the girl empowerment, the watershed management, all that to Rachel. So by the beginning of April, we'll be able to do, we're going to set aside 3 weeks, 1 week in Barrias and a week off, and then a week in Pay-10 for doing the rollouts of year 1 in Pay-10 and year 3 in Barrias at that time.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So announcements, next week is supposed to be our AGM. We'll talk about that sometime. December 15th at the Capitol Theater, a social evening, I think 6 to 8:30. And we are going to collect for the outreach for hunger, just because we're there. And just if you want to give anything, we'll just do it. So it's my pleasure. Oh, $20 a person, and at least $5 more for the outreach fund and the wine and the beer. So it's my pleasure to announce our speaker, Mr. Barry Fraser, who you may know. He has been the past president. He's a past district governor, and he is the environment chair for this club. Mr. Fraser.
So take it. This is, I'm going to use those. Let's not come over here.
Probably start reeling out.
Okay. Where are you going?
Just wherever you happen to go.
Well, I go where I need to go. Okay. My preference is right there.
Okay.
Is that
Back up a little.
back up? Can I go right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, President, and fellow Rotarians, and guests, especially Ashley. But she's not a guest, she's an honorary Rotarian. So I think we all need to, well, recognize that. Well, okay, I've got a few prepared notes, but I'd like to have just basically a chat here with reminiscing back over time. But you know, we've come through the pandemic over the last couple of years and trying to meet first online, Zoom, and then hybrid like it is today. So so there's been everybody saying change, change, change. But you know, that's what we've had for the last 100 years. And since we've been able to prepare, adjust the change for change in Rotary around the world, that's the reason why we're here today. And back at that time, I did chat and hash, and now we're at Go Tech and email and Go Zoom and whatever else. So you know, things do change over time, and that's good. So my reflections go back now. I'm now into my 44th year of Rotary. Now Andy Watson is on Zoom. Wave to me, Andy, please. I'm not going to look. Anyway, when Andy went into politics, NPP here, I left the room open for me to be invited, and he nominated me to the Rotary Club here in Chatham, sponsored me in, and that was in the fall of November of 1978. So I've been around ever since. So I like to look at the South as the first first 10 years. And then I was president in 87, 88, which is takes that, and then another 10 years to the year 2000. And here we are, another 20 years. Here we are in 2021, roughly into 2022. So a lot has happened over that time. That's what I'd like to share some of my thoughts on with you. And I fully acknowledge what Tom and then Karen shared with us over the last couple of months. I want to make some mention about attendance. So when I joined Rotary, and others in the room will remember this, you were expected to attend 60% of the meetings in person. And when you're there, at least 60% of the meetings. So it's a 60-60 rule. And that was to prevent the scooters from going out. And I see we've already got the scooters already left. And I said, well, I'm going to acknowledge you, Mike, because he told me he was going to scoot out. But that was probably the first 30 years that I was in Rotary, where there was attendance was stuck to, and you know, everybody was encouraged for makeups. So I remember we had a lot of makeups of the other 7 Rotary clubs, 6 Rotary clubs in Chatham-Kent, and then some of the surrounding counties. I remember going to meetings, so I wound up with quite proud of the fact that I had perfect attendance for 30 years, from 1985 to roughly 2015. So, and now I say 2015 because after that it was not as strictly adhered to. We worked on projects, so you know the story on that. Also, jackets and ties. Well, I got no tie on the day, but everybody came to Rotary back in those times with a coat, more often a white shirt, tie, and a jacket. But then the women came along. We had to change that along a little bit. But the dress code is kind of leveled off a bit over time. So that's one thing I do notice. So yeah, there you go. Right? Now, thinking about hearing women speaking, I want to add to a couple of points that Tom and Karen made. So the first was a woman member, illegal, in the downtown Rotary Club in Toronto at the Royal York Hotel. And that was in 1988. And she made the comment about Rotary being the international ring of the male chauvinists. And that caught the attention of Rotary International. And so at the November board meeting of 1988, he invited the Toronto Rotary Club and then the Rotary Club in California that was challenging into the courts, both California, both state and national. And it was when they came in there, it was at that board meeting that the policies of Rotary National were changed to allow women into Rotary. And I would think that is probably one of the biggest changes that I think has happened for the good of Rotary, is bringing women into Rotary. And Jennifer paid me to say that. I'll put that in for cash later on. So, and then Karen became a member, was it 92 or 91? 91. I tried to have her a member in 88, 87, 88, but that wasn't going to work because of the male chauvinists within our club. Is that right, Tom?
It wasn't at me.
So, and then after that, Virginia Nordby, she was the first woman in the Ann Arbor Rotary Club, 300 members, and she was the first woman. And she became the first president of that club in about 1992 and 93, and then she became she was the first nominated district governor in the world from our district here, and became district governor in 97, 98. She's still living, and a really close friend of mine. I have to say, I've known Virginia literally back from the 90s, when she was on the faculty at the University of Michigan. So that was and then we have the, all the way to forward now, of course, we know that Jennifer Jones is coming in as RI president come next July. So there's the whole long story. It's taken 30 years plus to happen, to bring a Rotary International president as a woman. So as a function of all that, we're hearing the term these days, the acronym DEI, diversity, equity, and integrity. And that's definitely a major facet. And it's here, Rotary talks about a lot, and that is a good space to be in my estimation. So 1987-88, that was the year that I was president of the club, when I was just hardly 40 at the time. And at that time, there were 115 members in the club. And past district governor Keith Cope was the president the year previous in 86-87. And then I just mentioned the year previous to that was Glenn Smith, who had just recently retired as the manager of the very large CIBC bank in downtown Chatham. And it was in 1988 where Glenn was named the Chatham-Kent Citizen of the Year. And Glenn was a really strong proponent of all things Rotary within the club, certainly through the 80s when he was here in Chatham. The club, after sticking with some of the projects that are around, after considerable planning and engineering from engineer being Herb Todgman, and architectural on behalf coming from Bob Kindle, both members of our club, the decision was made to finally construct the first building, solid building at Rotary Park down the street here, there in 1988. And it wound up having dressing rooms, showers, concession stand. It's a multi-purpose building, and it's still there, just as if it was built 3 years ago. It's a landmark location for the Wolf Diamond down there. I'll mention a bit later. A little later on, the club underwrote the current state-of-the-art grandstand that's there. It was opened in 2010, and Ed, his name is up on the plaque. He didn't even know that. When he didn't know that, I went back and checked earlier this week. Yes, it is there. You truly are there for notoriety purposes. And that is a state-of-the-art grandstand, just like the ball diamond is a state-of-the-art for hardball. Got a high reputation across Ontario. I mention all that because our name is, you go walk around that facility, that property there, the name Rotary must be mentioned at least half a dozen times on plaques there. So and then after that, the Office and Learning Center was built. Big lettering, big banner for Rotary up there on the gable end. And then also beyond that, there's a storage facility for the field office and storage for the Chatham-Kent Minor Ball Association. And that's what took place in the last 10 years. So we've had an ongoing presence at that location as part of the Fergie Jenkins field, which is a very good cross connect in itself. I also want to make mention of well, back at that time, names have changed, but we had the Corporate Children's Committee that started in 1948. Names have changed over time: disabled children, handicapped, able children, as a function of the Children's Treatment Center. So in 1948, the club became a very strong supporter of disabled children through the Ontario March of Dimes. In 1954, the first Children's Treatment Center was built on Eugenie Street. And it served a very useful purpose until 1984, when the current Children's Treatment Center was built and opened. And of course, Donna Litton-Mackey, a member of our club, is the executive director of that facility. And that facility wound up being 6 times bigger than the one that was on Eugenie Street, 6 times. Well, time rolls on, and that facility on Lark Street is outgrown itself, and plans were in place to build the 3rd additional children's treatment center in the northwest corner of Chatham. And I don't think construction will start on that yet. There's no construction on that. I don't go there very often. But anyway, it's going to be bigger than the 6 times that the current center representative going back to Lark Street. So and I just again I want to recognize Ashley for being here as an honorary Rotarian. That's very much in keeping with what I tried to share with you, is where the space that the Chatham Rotary Club has been in, well, since 1948. And you just do the math on that, and that's a very strong presence that our club has a lot of history in, and that should be part of our 100th anniversary celebrations. I want to make some mention now of, again, on polio. So as I said before, I joined Rotary in 1978, and that just happened to be the year that the first club in the world identifying with polio was in the Philippines. And it started a local project, and that captured the attention of the Rotary world to the point when in 1982, the RI Board of Directors declared that there would be the official launch of the polio eradication campaign, 1982. And then come along year, fundraising had to start after that. And so in the year 86, 87, which happened to be the year that Keith Koch was president here, we had a fundraising campaign within the club, just within the club. And Keith was chair of that campaign. And the RI has had a goal of $110 million US to raise that year to kickstart the eradication program. And within our club, just within the club, the membership then, I remember I said it's 115 members, we raised $85,000. I always thought was very impressive. And that was so that really the big buy-in from our club. And that took place there, and the other Rotary clubs across Chatham Kent did likewise quite strong in that respect. Now, I don't think Tom, you mentioned about the Pierces, or did you? Walk? Okay, good. Yeah, well, I'll just mention again. So they walked across Canada. I don't remember what the number was. How much money did they raise on that campaign?
Well, $2 million. Or less.
Or more or less. That's the last time I'm going back to you, Tom. So I, you know, that's good. And so in 87, 88, when the campaign actually got started, there were 350,000 identified new cases in the world every year at that time. And so you roll the clock forward, and North America became declared it polio-free in the mid-1980s. And then from there on in, through the 35 years that the campaign has been going on, 2019, the continent of Africa was declared polio-free. And then in this year, 2021, we got that count down to only 4 new cases in the world in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Only 4. So also, before I leave this, I just want to say how fortunate we, Rotary, has been to set the template of the distribution of vaccines for polio. Because it's become the template, especially in the third world countries, to roll out the vaccinations for COVID, the pandemic. Even there's still lots of challenges in that, but in some of those third world countries, especially in Africa, what the protocols have been followed. In India declared in 2012 was the polio-free. Amazing. India, 2012, always amazed me. Rolling on to the environment, I wanted to mention a bit about the environment. Tom mentioned the fact that he created the Environment Committee in this year, and he asked me to serve as chair of the Environment Committee. And so, I mean, so indebted to Tom's story since then. Thank you very much, Tom. So that year, and that was, of course, that was the year that the RI president Preserve Planet Earth was going on, and that was a function of that. And so the environment committees and clubs across the world started to mushroom. That year, there was, Tom mentioned, 55,000 trees were planted on the 22 school properties across Chatham, City of Chatham and Pancor, in the form of windbreak species of cedars and spruce, and groves of deciduous trees on each of those school properties if the area allowed it to happen. And then we moved the clock forward in the late, and then in the late 1990s, we replanted the Rotary Park by the Thames River, late 90s. And then we moved over to Paxton's Bush, now the O'Neill Nature Preserve, now the Rotary Eco Trail. And it was in 2015 where we started to begin the construction of the trails within that woodlot, which is definitely going to be there well into the future, 1.2 kilometers of trail. And we're very fortunate those trails have been there because we certainly have solidified in the city and that being a primary walking path. There are tens of thousands of people who walk that path on a yearly basis, and all proven by counters there. And every time you go in there, you have the feeling that I work a Rotary cap. Of course, people will stop and say thank you, which is really nice. Or talk to somebody. Oh, I come in here every day. I walk the dog. I babysit the grandkids, and on it goes. So it's a good news story for us to be associated with, and again, good space for the Chatham Rotary Club to be in. Move the clock forward, and well, in 1718, RI President Ian Risley declared that there would be a tree planted for every Rotarian in the world, which then was 1.2 million. So 1.2 million trees to be planted. Our club planted around about 100 that year. The district planted around about 3,000 trees. And worldwide, Ian Risley will say that over 30 million trees were planted because of that directive, I guess you could say, of let's plant trees. Roll the clock forward again. This year, our current year of 21-22, we now have the new area of focus, environmental sustainability. So instead of the 6 areas of focus, we now have the 7, and the 7th environmental sustainability cross connects with all those areas of focus. So that's again a good story when it comes to the environment, and we've been part of the whole rollout for the last 30 years. Finally, I want to make some mention of the Mustang Committee, Mustang Fundraising Committee. It was started in the year 2001, and it ran for 12 years. And over those 12 years, the club netted, all expenses paid, buying the cars, running around the country. Netted $520,000. And you know, so give a sense as to how our club is participating out into the community. The funds for that project went, for instance, to the hospital foundation projects, buying equipment, youth programming, Rotary Parks, seniors program. Oh, look over the seniors program. Job capital reconstruction, CKYMCA programming, junior achievement, youth scholarships, student exchange programs, and on it goes. That was what we promoted as we raised those funds over those 12 years. So, in conclusion, and just closing out, it is what we as members of our club do now going into the future that will draw attention to what we celebrate, to ensure that whoever is writing up the archives of what we're doing now, some 25 years, 50 years, 100 years, that we will have well recognition of the good work that we're doing out in the general community and district and international. So as they say, as the saying goes, we reap what we sow. We plant many worthwhile seeds. How could I not say all that coming from the field of agriculture? There we go. Seeds and trees. Did you get that?
Seeds.
Seeds and trees.
100%.
Were you not listening?
Thank you very much, Barry. I think we should give ourselves, after that, I mean, Barry is great, but we have done a wonderful job and we continue. So. Oh, is there anything? Oh, I know. When you decide of your top three, then it means 3, not 20. Just like that. So pick 3 of your favorite charities and put them out for us. We will appreciate that shortened list. Anybody need anything for better?
Jennifer, did Tom's story have any rebuttal?
An old man, what do you think? He said you were worried.
Well, I think Barry for that wonderful speech. Just wanted to question your memory. Because I was around, and you were talking about Keith being president prior to you. So you mentioned Lance Smith. You forgot my uncle Otto, who was the queen.
He was in between there, wasn't he?
Obviously, president before Keith. So one of them, try again.
I want to fully acknowledge that Tom's story is correct. Audrey was president, and was too. Yes, it was.
We could have that in writing.